Let's get into our conversation here. May is Melanoma Awareness Month, and thank you everyone for joining us. We're talking Love by the Sun, a new peach mango beer we are brewing here at Devil's Backbone, but also discussing ways to protect our skin this summer. And we have two board-certified dermatologists, Dr. Venna and Dr. Lucey. Thank you for being a part of this conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll let you introduce yourselves and we can get into some tips on protecting our skin this summer.
Sure, I'm Suraj Venna. I'm a dermatologist here at the Inova Schar Cancer Institute. And my focus is really on patients who've had melanoma. And we also do a lot of screening with the goal of being the earliest possible level of detection and curative intent.
And my name is Patricia Lucey, and I'm also a dermatologist at the Inova Schar Cancer Institute. And Dr. Venna is my mentor, and now he's my colleague. And I also specialize in melanoma detection in patients with high-risk features on their skin, like several moles or family history of melanoma or a complex skin exam. And our goal is to detect skin cancer at its earliest, most preventable stages.
Okay. What do people need to know about protecting their skin in UV light? What are tips that people need to be aware of?
Sure. Well, ultraviolet light, also ultraviolet radiation, is from the sun. There's UVA, B, and C, and UVC is usually filtered by the ozone, but UVA and B can age the skin and burn the skin and cause the three main types of skin cancer that we see, which is, basal cell, squamous cell, and melanoma. And there's lots of ways to protect yourself from the sun. The most important being, to wear sunscreen to avoid the very high peak sun index hours, which are 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., sunglasses, hats, and also UPF clothing. We don't want any of our patients to not enjoy the beautiful weather. We just want them to be smart while enjoying it.
Yeah, and Ben, I'll add to that I think especially with kids, right now during this pandemic, we all need to get out more for our own mental sanity. And so our message here is that we can do it safely. And for kids in particular, I think, focusing on sun protective clothing along with sunscreen is really the most practical way that we can enjoy the outdoors as families.
Well, right on, Ed. Thank you for going over some of those items. What do people need to know? I heard you mention UVA, UVB, UVC. What do people need to know about sunscreen?
Okay, so sunscreen, there's generally two main classes of sunscreen. There's mineral sunscreen and there's chemical sunscreen, and they work differently and they behave differently. So it is important to kind of know the two differences. So mineral sunscreens are those that either have zinc oxide or titanium dioxide in them. They're generally safer because they're mineral based. So they're really good for patients that have sensitive skin or acne or rosacea. They're good for athletes or for people that are going to be sweating, because if they get in your eyes, it's not going to burn. And they're definitely safe for children because they're more natural, they're mineral based, like zinc and titanium based. The downside is that they're a little thicker and a little bit whiter and a little bit harder to rub in. So some people, from a cosmetic standpoint or functional standpoint, you really have to spend some time rubbing it in, but it's very waterproof, very water resistant, broad spectrum, meaning that it protects against UVA and UVB rays. And the other advantage is that it starts working immediately. You put it on your skin and it's reflecting essentially the sun rays off of your skin. And that's in comparison to chemical sunscreens, which have chemicals in them. And so they can be a little bit more irritating for people with sensitive skin, acne, rosacea, eczema. They can burn if it gets in your eyes. There is a lot of push against using chemicals on your skin for health reasons and toxicity concerns, and then also with some concerns with the environment. Like oxybenzone is a big one that is a big well-known chemical sunscreen that's getting a lot of press because of it getting runoff and affecting the coral reefs in the oceans. But the good thing about chemical sunscreens is that they rub in very easily. A lot of them can come in aerosolized sprays, so they're a lot easier to apply. But another downside is that they're called chemical sunscreens because they actually cause a chemical reaction in the skin. So you have to apply them on your skin and wait about 10 to 15 minutes for that chemical reaction to happen so it can absorb the light and then reflect the light off as heat. So it takes time to work. So there's pros and cons for both. Really, we want our patients using a sunscreen at least SPF 30. So there's, oils that are in the 5 to 10 range, and there's stuff that's in the 100 range, but really, a 30 or above is really safe and really effective. And a lot of other things about sunscreen is just knowing that you're applying enough sunscreen. A lot of patients don't apply enough. They do a quick spray or a quick smear. You really have to apply a thick enough layer to cover the skin properly. And like I said, you have to apply it kind of before you go outside, before you sweat it off, wipe it off, or before it has time to get activated, like with the chemical sunscreens. And another thing is people forget to reapply. We really recommend our patients to reapply every 2 hours because if you're outside enjoying the weather, you might be swimming, sweating, toweling off and wiping it off because you're sweating. So if it wipes off, you should reapply it every couple of hours to stay protected. But those are kind of the two main classes of sunscreens and a couple little facts about how they work and how to apply them properly for them to be effective.
And Ben, if I can also add, every skin type should use sunscreens. So people who are at most risk for skin cancers and melanoma tend to have lighter colored skin, so fair skin, blonde hair, light colored eyes, number of risk factors. But we do see skin cancers in other skin types. So we see skin cancers in Asian people, in Hispanic origin, in African Americans. And so the other goal of sunscreen is just to decrease redness of the skin too. And redness of the skin is really a stress response of your skin to UV light. I just wanted to take this opportunity also to just remind everyone that anyone can get skin cancer, regardless of your skin color, although there are variations in the incidence based on the skin color.
And this brings up a question I have. Let's say it's a little bit overcast or it's mostly cloudy and it doesn't look like the sun's really out. Should you still put sunscreen on?
I would say absolutely. I tell my patients to wear sunscreen every day, regardless of if it's cloudy, sunny, rainy, overcast. The UV light can still get through the clouds. I think all of us have experienced that we've been outside and it's cloudy or overcast or not particularly sunny, but we still get a sunburn. It might not be as strong of a UV index, or you might not get as strong of a sunburn if there's some cloud coverage, but you will still get affected from the sun. So I tell my patients to put the sunscreen on every single day, at least on the areas that are exposed, which is like your face, neck, chest, and your hands, even when you're driving to and from work, because you never know how the weather is going to change, how the cloud coverage is going to change, how the UV index is going to change throughout the day, and then you're protected. So even if the weather doesn't seem like it's going to cooperate, I think we've all experienced it, that people said, oh, it looked cloudy, and they still can get a quite significant burn. So it's important to stay protected all the time.
Yeah, that's great advice right there. What are some ways that people can check their own skin? Is there anything that they need to be aware of?
Yes. So in order to check your own skin, first it's important to know what to look for. So I'm going to share a screen. I'm going to review what's called the ABCDEs of melanoma. And this is from the American Academy of Dermatology website. So can you see my screen, Ben?
Yep. Yeah, I can see it.
So we talk about the ABCDEs of melanoma, and we're talking about freckles on the skin that are starting to look irregular. So A stands for asymmetry. So as you can see here, you have this asymmetric freckle. This is dark and this is lighter brown in color. So that'll be a potentially worrisome sign of early skin cancer that's starting to evolve, an early melanoma. We also look at the borders of these lesions. So if you notice that the border is not perfectly smooth, it's starting to get jagged, as you can see where my mouse is here, that could also be a potential sign of a benign lesion evolving into melanoma. We also talk about C for color. So within a given lesion, if you start to see multiple colors in a freckle, there's also a potential sign of melanoma. And then D is for diameter. We do find melanomas that are less than 6 millimeters, which is the size of a pencil eraser. But certainly, if you have a dark spot and it's greater than or wider than the head of an eraser, that should also trigger some concern that maybe it should be evaluated. And then several years ago, E was added to the ABCD, and E stands for evolving as in changing. So if you have a mole that's been sitting there for years, but then you're noticing that, hey, wait a minute, this mole is really changing, that's also an important finding or clue that this could be a melanoma. So those are things to look for. So once you know what to look for, then, I think we can talk a little bit more for a few minutes about how to do the self-skin check. And while most melanomas and skin cancers do arise on areas of the body that are exposed to sunlight, we do find melanomas on sun-protected sites, including under the undergarments, in the armpits, so in areas that you wouldn't necessarily think of melanoma, even on the soles of the feet. And so if you can look at my slide here, ideally, when you do a self-exam, you would have a full-length mirror and start to look at the front of your body, and then try and look at the sides. Look at the sides of your arms, forearms, even your palms, even under the nails. So melanoma really can occur anywhere. And then sit in a chair, as you can see here, and look at the soles of your feet in between your toes. And then try and grab a handheld mirror to look at the nape of the neck. And then, the reality is that it's challenging to evaluate your back on your own, right? You can try with the mirror, but it really is important to get a partner involved to help you monitor the back. And so I think for the best self-skin check, I would follow the words of the famous poets Rob Bass and DJ Easy Rock when they say, "It takes two to make a thing go right." So don't forget to get someone else involved with your skin check, especially for your back.
That was a great review. Thank you, Dr. Venna.
Sure.
Now I'm just
And
thinking.
so when we see patients in our clinics, we basically are doing the full skin check, and so we try to mentally prepare our new patients ahead of the visit that we do plan to look everywhere. We in the scalp, in between the fingers, under the underwear, even in between the buttock area. Sometimes we've found melanomas in the groin in people who've used tanning beds.
And another thing, what Dr. Venna said, that, you can get the majority of melanomas that we do see are from the sun. About 80% of melanomas are from, either acute intermittent sun exposure, one of those really bad sunburns or tanning beds you were using, or chronic cumulative sun exposure. So they're usually in areas that have been exposed to the sun, but you can get melanomas in areas that have not been exposed to the sun. And that might be from a genetic influence if you have a family history with melanoma. And then, we always talk about May being Melanoma Awareness Month or Skin Cancer Awareness Month. And I think it kind of brings home in pop culture. Bob Marley died of a melanoma that was on his pinky toe. And he was Jamaican, he had very dark skin, and it was an area that probably he wasn't tanning his toe upside down. So it's why it is important to look, head to toe, is what we call it, a head to toe full body skin exam when you're doing these skin checks.
Absolutely. Dr. Venna, were you going to say something to add on? Didn't want to interrupt you there. Are there many common questions out there that come up that people don't think about in checking for their skin or things like that?
I think one of the people don't understand that skin cancers can happen on areas that are covered. So again, under the underwear line, if you have a full head of hair, we look at the scalp, they ask why. And so melanoma really, and squamous cells and basal cells kind of occur on the scalp too. I think that's one major thing, is just the distribution of melanomas. I mean, in most people, the back is a very common site for melanoma, as well as the calf and the legs, especially in women. And it might be related to acute intermittent sun exposure and clothing preferences. And so if you have someone up in Boston and they go down to the Caribbean twice a year and they get a bad sunburn, those 2 weeks of being down in the Caribbean, really are an important risk factor and cause an acute insult to their skin, and is a risk factor for melanoma.
To bring this back a little bit, this is a personal question of mine, and if anyone out there has questions, please let us know. We're talking about melanomas, but what are some benefits of the sun?
So, getting UV exposure is great for the soul, great for releasing neurotransmitters and anti-stress hormones, feel-good hormones. So I think that is very important. People forget about that. It does feel good to be out in the sun, and it does help people's mental health. Absolutely. Vitamin D is a hormone and also a vitamin that is essential to the human bodies. Almost every organ needs it. And vitamin D is important for bone health. It's a hormone that also helps, with mental health and anti-depression, in fact. So we need the sun to make vitamin D. The sun gets, into the skin then converts the sunlight into a pro-hormone of vitamin D. And then there's several steps through the gut and the liver and the kidneys that kind of make it the active vitamin D. So it is important for that. We hear a lot of patients say, oh, I need to get some sun because I need to get my vitamin D. But there's a couple things to think about with that statement, in that after 15 minutes of unexposed sun exposure, of unprotected sun exposure, your vitamin D receptors in your skin are fully saturated. So after you get any more sun, you're not getting any more benefit from getting more vitamin D. And also the patients that might be high risk for skin cancer, that are very fair, that have had skin cancer, have a family history of skin cancer, or prone to burning, we don't recommend that they get this, just unprotected sun exposure just to get their vitamin D. There's so many other healthier ways to get vitamin D through your diet and through supplements, in case you are low in vitamin D or need vitamin D.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Are there any final comments or thoughts that you'd like to share?
I just wanted to, again, just thank the Melanoma Research Foundation and Devil's Backbone for really engaging the community and allowing us to participate and get the message out, especially during this month of melanoma and skin cancer awareness. And today is National, Friday? Don't Friday, right? Don't Friday. But thank you for allowing us to spread the message. And this is the last thing I always want to say is, unlike other cancers, we have to remember that melanoma is a visual diagnosis. So we all have a chance to find it and to find it early. But it's one of these cancers where if we find it early, then a relatively simple intervention, which is an excision, a cutting it out and stitching it in the clinic, is life-saving. So this is one of those cancers where we can all help find it early. So not just the doctors and the providers, but spouses. Half of melanomas are detected by the patient or spouse. At barbers, hairstylists, finding skin cancers on the scalps and ears. So we're kind of all in this together, and we can really curtail the death rate from melanoma by continuing to catch it early.
Great. Fantastic words. Thank you so much for joining us. Making the world a better place, not only on people's skin, but making the world a better place one year at a time. So really appreciate it. Next up, we have the Melanoma Research Foundation CEO, Kylie. Are you there?
Hi, Ben. I'm here. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. Thank you for
Good.
joining us.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you, Dr. Venna and Dr. Lucey as well. That was amazing and so helpful to all the people watching on Facebook Live and who will certainly watch the video after. It's just such important messaging, especially during Melanoma Awareness Month, before everyone goes off on their holiday weekend and spends more time outdoors. So thank you so much for giving all that great information. And I would be remiss to not say a big thank you to Devil's Backbone for partnering with us this month. We're so grateful to have you guys as our partner supporting us and also as our national beverage partner for 2020. So just a big thank you to you all. I wanted to give you all something as a little token of our appreciation to Devil's Backbone. If you can see this pop up, just to recognize you all for your commitment to skin cancer awareness and prevention. If we were not virtual, I would be handing this to you in person, but of course we are. So we will send it off to you, but we're just really appreciative of all the awareness you're creating about melanoma and skin cancer prevention and early detection. So thank you so much for being our partner in our mission to eradicate melanoma.
Thank you so much for that. It's an honor to be a partner, and if we can help spread the word and save some lives, that is a great way to move forward. So thank you so much for this opportunity on our end as well.
Well, thank you. And I wanted to just share a little bit because I know we probably have more people viewing who don't know so much about what the MRF does. So I just wanted to share a little bit about who we are as an advocacy organization. So the MRF started about 25 years ago by a patient who was diagnosed with melanoma. And at the time, there were very few treatment options available. So because of her advocacy and her frustration with the lack of options, she started the Melanoma Research Foundation. And sadly, she passed away a year before we gave our first research grant. But it's really because of her that we exist today. And we remain committed to all of our patients and all of their caregivers in finding a cure for this disease. So the other side of that, as we all know during Melanoma Awareness Month, is the prevention and education. So as an advocacy organization, that's another big pillar of our mission, which is to educate the public, educate patients, their caregivers, and really make people informed, because an informed patient is an empowered patient. So that's very similar to what Devil's Backbone is doing, which is helping to empower, their consumers with education about checking their own skin. So by providing that self-skin guide with the product, we're really showing people that you can take your health into your own hands and learn, just as Dr. Venna shared, the right way to check your skin. So we're really thrilled to be able to provide those resources to our community and to expand beyond as well to nationally across the United States. So we're really excited and appreciate all the things that Devil's Backbone is doing, and especially our wonderful medical partners at Inova, who are treating patients every day and are on the front lines. So together we can all make a really big difference in the fight against this disease.
Absolutely. What are some events and programs that you all are hosting across the country?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Melanoma Awareness Month is, of course, a very busy month, but I would say at the MRF, we are busy year-round. We host 14 Miles for Melanoma 5K run walks across the country. You can find information on those at melanoma.org. We host galas. We're now hosting virtual galas because everything's going virtual. And we also host patient symposia. And those are held at academic centers across the United States for patients and caregivers. And right now, again, because everything's shut down, we've moved those virtually as well. So if anything, we're producing more content for our community, really keeping them informed about what's going on. And we bring in our subject matter experts like Dr. Venna and Dr. Lucey to come and speak to those topics as well. We also did a virtual Miles for Melanoma event in May. It ends next week. Devil's Backbone was very generous to donate $1 for every mile across the country, which is 3,000 miles. And I'm very proud to report that our melanoma community is pretty active. So they went across the country by May 15th. So now we're going back the other way. So it's really exciting. It's a way to keep people engaged and, you know, keep your spirits up, get outdoors, but protect yourself and, you know, really rally around a cause that you care about. So we're really excited about the virtual Miles for Melanoma program, and people have been sharing their photos on social media and tagging us and really being creative. So it's been a really great month, and it's nice to see so many people, you know, again, getting involved, even if it's from their couch.
Closing thoughts we'd like to share with our audience?
Yeah, just one quick thing, you know, as you go out this weekend, I just want one statistic to kind of stick out in people's mind, that 9 out of 10 cases of melanoma are considered preventable. So there's a lot of really easy lifts that people can do. Dr. Lucey spoke to the sunscreen part, but there's also UPF clothes. So again, you can wear a UPF 50 shirt. They're great for kids. It's just another way that you can really protect yourself and your loved ones. And I think that's really the message, is to have fun, enjoy the long weekend, but just be smart and protect yourself. And remember that there are a lot of different options. It's not just sunscreen, but you can wear, you know, a wide brimmed hat, stay in the shade, seek shade whenever possible, avoid the peak hours of the day when the sun is the strongest. And just realize that you can control sort of your destiny in many ways in terms of how much sun exposure you get. So that's a really critical piece. And we just want people to be educated and aware.
And to add on to that, if anyone goes outside and they have some love by the sun, they see the color changing can and they ain't put sunscreen on, hopefully that can be a reminder, hey, the can is changing color. It's time for me to put on sunscreen, because I don't want to change too much color on my end, just like this can, because if that can be a mental reminder, hopefully that can help trigger some people to put on some sunscreen out there.
Yeah, you don't want to change color at all. There's no such thing as a healthy tan.
Yeah. And if there's any sort of memory trigger that we can establish, I think that is a great way to remember, put on sunscreen. It's very important.
Absolutely. Well, we wish all of you at Devil's Backbone and Dr. Lucey and Dr. Venna a very happy Memorial Day, a happy and a safe one. And thank you, you know, from the whole MRF team for supporting our mission to eradicate this disease.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us. Happy Memorial Day weekend. Happy Skin Cancer Awareness Month. And we can't wait to try your new beer with the color changing can. It looks awesome.